All right, so welcome to episode 19 of the Dear Black ED podcast, where we explore the stories, challenges, and triumphs of Black leaders in the nonprofit sector. I am your host, Jade Nicole Neradon Merritt, and I am the founder and executive director of Black ED Network. And so today's episode is all about capacity, the people, programs, and power it takes to build strong leaders and thriving communities. We're diving into what it means to invest in leadership skills, pipelines, build sustainable organizations, and bridge the gap between social impact and strategy. So, our guest is none other than the amazing Jania Massey, a visionary leader, social impact strategist, entrepreneur, and I must say, proud Black ED board member. She's also our program director of the Black ED Leadership Accelerator, something you definitely want to know about, where she helps nonprofit executive directors deepen their leadership and organizational capacity. As founder and executive director of Stiletto University, Jania has empowered over 1,000 young women through entrepreneurship, mentorship, and leadership development. She's also the CEO of Huepact, which is a social impact consulting firm and embeds meaningful community initiatives into business models. Nationally recognized by Goldman Sachs Black in Business, the Know Women, and Career Master Top 100 Entrepreneurs, Jania has built her career at the intersection of innovation, quality, and community. Her work is the blueprint for how to turn vision into lasting impact. So whether you are leading a nonprofit, designing capacity building programs, or rethinking of how to grow leaders within your organization, this conversation will give you an insight and inspiration to accelerate change. So without further ado, let us welcome our dynamic and visionary Jania Massey to the Dear Black ED podcast. Hey, Jania.
Yes, thanks for having me. That was probably the first time I've heard my bio and didn't cringe.
Oh my
That shows, I
gosh.
think that shows healing. Sometimes people be like, it makes you cringy, and it's like, nah, impact is real. So sometimes you can forget being in the work. And so to know what I've been able to do in such a short time is amazing. All glory to God for real. Because it ain't no.
Amen.
Mhm.
Amen. And before we dive deep, and Gianni and I talked before, so we have some questions that we like to go over with our guests, and I was like, yeah, Jania. So we're gonna go completely off script today. But one of the things that you mentioned before we really get into our interview today
Mhm.
is this isn't the first time that I've heard a Black woman leader say, this
Mhm.
is the first time when I hear my bio, when I hear people talk about me and my accomplishments, you use the word cringe, but sometimes it just takes me aback or makes me feel anxious. And
Mhm.
it's like, in moments like this, it's a celebration of who we are. But oftentimes, as Black women, we hold back a
Mhm.
lot of ourselves because whether of the perception of others, whether we feel like we're even worthy enough, whether it's imposter syndrome. So
Yeah.
just take me a little bit through your thoughts in terms of just kind of like how that has made you feel and
Mhm.
how you seem to feel more empowered today hearing those amazing accomplishments about yourself.
I think in the beginning, I think a lot of times how we as Black women define what humble means,
Mm,
not the true definition.
mhm,
And if you read it from a biblical sense, when you think about somebody that was humble, I think first person that come to mind would be Jesus.
mhm,
There was no, Jesus still did outwardly what his
mm,
assignment was that God told him to do. Jesus healed so many people. Jesus fed everybody. We could talk about the loaves and the fishes, but he did it in authority and keeping his head up high. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, in the beginning, it's just like how people or society decide being humble, which kind of makes people be like silent or not wanting to boast. You know what I'm saying? Making
mhm,
it seem that it's almost like the term bougie. I
mhm.
like people will cringe. You so bougie. And I'm like, I think that's a compliment,
Right.
because it is. It's if you look at the true definition of the word, it is you take care of yourself. You deserve these things. And I think that now in just healing and recognizing my part in community and what I've been grateful to be a part of and what I've been able to share, whether it's through Black ED or through Stiletto Boss University. Like those young girls, I have been a part of their journey and they have been so much a part of mine that has helped me grow and
Mm-hmm.
continue to grow as a human being, whether I'm a female or Black or not. I'm continuing to grow, to serve, and to be a servant leader. And so, why not be proud of what has happened? Because if I'm not proud, then that means I don't believe what God gave me to do.
Amen.
Like, why would I not be happy about my bio?
Yes,
He gave
yes,
me the opportunity to do it, to put these words together. So that's just where I'm at now. But yeah, but in the beginning, I was like, "Ooh, that sound like I'm ooh, ooh, ooh." It would make me cringe. Oh God! And now I'm
yeah.
sitting up.
Yes, sitting up. Look at that posture. So
Mhm.
you mentioned in the beginning. So let's talk about the beginning, right? Let's talk about all the hats that we, know that, you're a founder, you're a consultant, program director. So how did the journey begin? Kind of what led you in this space? And I know more specifically, your journey really started out in the youth development space with Stiletto Boff University, but now you're in leadership and capacity building. So just for our listeners and viewers today, could you just kind of walk us through what that journey has looked like for you?
Yeah. So in the beginning, and I'm it's so funny because I'm reading Genesis now. So
Right. In the beginning was a word, and the word was God, and the word was with God. Yes, I know that. Okay.
So I'm literally in Genesis. I'm just passing. I'm reading the whole Bible for FYI. So
That's
come on.
amazing.
So I'm in Genesis. I've already read New Testament. I'm in Genesis. We're talking about Noah, the art, all of that.
Hmm.
And so I feel like for me, how it all started was, of course, with my mother. My mother always made sure to embed giving back to community at a very young age. I don't remember a time where I wasn't volunteering or serving at no point in my life. That's just been embedded in me. But I also know the click for me happened after graduating college and coming into corporate. And corporate, it wasn't that I didn't like it per se, but
Hmm.
I always kept going back to how do we make things clearer? How do we serve people better? Because what I did in corporate was healthcare consulting, and I don't think we realized how impactful we were to people on the outside because we had such a routine. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
When I started in corporate, we was opening mail. It was like I was the mail girl.
Okay.
But these are applications to people that needed medical help. They needed insurance, and we had to learn how to verify those benefits. We had to learn how to get them medications that they couldn't afford. But because
Mhm.
we only would talk to those people on the phone and it felt like a call center, it felt like all these things. I think that a lot of times, and we're all could be guilty of this, that we don't recognize our impact in our jobs.
Mm.
And so with that, I started to think more outwardly, like, dang, I don't know if I really like this job per se. Like, do I want to do this? Because I did the job for over almost 12 years. But I was like, what else can I do outwardly that would help the younger me? And so
Mhm.
that's how Stiletto Boss University was born, because I also always had a side business. So
Okay.
and I was really into fashion. I thought I was gonna be the next June Ambrose and be up in New York Fashion Week. I thought I was gonna be running the streets, but that wasn't my ministry either because I don't even like going shopping now. But with that being said, I was like, how cool would it be if we were to have a community to teach people entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
especially women? Because at that time, 10 12, almost 15 years ago, women were not the fast and growing entrepreneurs. We
Right.
didn't look at women that were hairstylists as entrepreneurs. We may not have looked at males
Mm.
that own barbershops. We just like, oh, that's where we go to get our hair done. We didn't realize
They
that
are
they
entrepreneurs.
were doing an exchange, and this is what they do. They have their own, maybe they have their own salon or daycare. Like it's just certain little businesses I didn't think of. So I ended up just like, how do we make this concept work? And just stepped out on faith. I end up eventually leaving my job almost 10 years ago. And I was just like, how do we teach young girls? And what I realized that it was a program that would have helped my younger self. But now
Mhm.
it has evolved into a program that is helping the next generation be confident, to make better decisions about their career, to be aware. Now they're like, oh, I didn't know that was an opportunity. It makes them more curious. It makes
Mm.
me creative. It really does a lot with soft skill, and it does a lot with personal development, because I always tell people entrepreneurship, the reason why I'm so passionate about it, because I know I would not have grown this fast personally if I didn't
Mhm.
become an entrepreneur. I wouldn't have been stretched in the way that I have. So that's really that. But when it came into me starting Huepact, it was the company that I needed to help me build Stiletto Boss University.
Okay.
There was not a consulting firm that I knew of at that time 10 years ago that could help you to strategize or build impact reports or build curriculum and programming that really got to the surface of what it is in community and how to translate that. Because a lot of times people don't realize that there is a corporate side to philanthropy.
Yeah,
There
absolutely.
would never not be. It's a business, and we talk about this all the time, but there is a corporate side. So the people that are typically giving the money to communities, they may not have experienced the hardship that communities are experiencing.
Right.
So to them, they're like, oh, well, affordable housing is what's needed. And yes,
Mhm.
people do need a house. That's our birthright. But also, people may be like, I want to go home safely. I don't want gun violence anymore. People may be like, oh, I am hungry and I am only able to eat food from the Family Dollar, and that's only eggs and milk. We don't have no vegetables there. But I
Mm.
can't get to another grocery store because I don't have transportation. So
Mhm.
it's sometimes there has been a mismatch of people from a higher billionaire, wealthier level, what they should invest in to people that are day by day, everyday Americans, whether you are low income, middle class, that are hardships that we experience on the day to day basis. And how can you leverage your kindness through financial support to real organizations? And so HUVAC has become a part of that gap to bridge it, to create context for nonprofits to how to really go into communities and have impact that is sustainable and that can have a long term impact.
Absolutely. I love that. And I mean, not to kind of politicize the conversation because we are in the midst of where it's becoming even more increasingly challenging
Mhm.
to access, like you say, things that are birthright or things that are just basic needs in terms of food, milk,
Yeah.
accessibility to those things. And one of the things that you mentioned was kind of your journey in healthcare. And we know right now, we are in the midst
Mhm.
of a federal government shutdown. Millions of Americans are impacted right now because of the furloughs
Yeah.
around the healthcare debate, right? And
Yeah.
so when you were talking about the impact you made, whether it's opening envelopes for applications or, making calls to individuals, those are things that are a necessity that we all
Need.
as citizens need and deserve.
Mhm.
And so, when you talked about, and I kind of wanted to sit in that transition because there are folks who may want to, like you said, step out on faith,
Mhm.
make the transition from where they might be in a corporate setting or employed, a 9 to 5, which most certainly we need those things,
We
right?
need. Yeah.
But what was the transition
Yeah.
like from your 9 to 5, or what kind of hope or inspiration would you be able to provide folks, step by step
Yeah.
from a transition from your corporate into what you are really defining as your purpose
Yeah.
driven work?
Yeah. And I think I would say first, you have to know that there is a difference between your purpose, your calling, and your gift.
Mhm.
And so you have to identify with that. And sometimes they all overlap and sometimes they come through in different seasons. And I say that
Okay.
because when I was working my 9 to 5, the 3 years before I left, I was like, I remember from a faith base, I have to surrender because I'm not happy here, but my lack of happiness is not because of this job. I need to
Mm.
work on something internally within me. And
Mhm.
so me identifying that, being honest with myself and having that conversation with God in a surrender mode, because I literally thought I was having a bipolar breakdown. And I'm not bipolar, but and I hate to use those terms, but I
Mhm.
would literally look at my work computer and start crying. And then
Mhm.
I would look at my personal computer that had what I love doing on it and stop.
Mm.
And I was like, something is off here. What is going on? What I'm not, whatever. And I was like, I can't blame my job, just like you can't blame another person for not being happy. You have to start with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Now they may be a part of you not being happy, but but
Right.
you have to like really address like what is it that I want? That was really the big thing. So for me, my advice is always to start with you, to
Mhm.
really dream, and write it down. So I had to say, what does my life look like? And why am I not living my life now when I have all the things that that I'm accessible to, you know?
Mhm.
So for me, it was, okay, I'm not where I want to be financially. Am I saving the way I'm supposed to? Am I learning about finances the way I need to? What is my real debt? We run away from having that honest financial conversation. What is my debt? And at that time I had student loans, I had a car note, but what was I paying? I was paying the minimum balance on my credit card because I didn't know. I had the highest credit utilization. I'm at
Mhm.
above 30%. I'm like, oh, I'm paying on it every month, girl. If your card is $500 max and you got 495 on it, I don't care if you paying $25. That is
Baby, listen, trying to make that $5 stretch.
$5 stretch. So to me, I'm like, I'm paying my bills, and it's like, no, you are,
Right.
you got that part right, but you ain't paying enough.
Right.
You still maxing it out. So it was literally me having to be honest with myself about financially, where I was spiritually. I remember literally reading Proverbs 31, the whole chapter, and going line by line,
Mhm.
rating myself. You like a
Mhm.
5 right here. You need to get at least get to an 8. It was an
Not a
honest conversation.
5,
Yeah,
girl.
I'm at a 5. I'm at a 5. But it was honest conversation. So once I did that, I had goals. So I remember at the company I work for, every year, it's annual re-verification at the top of the
Yes.
year. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, we would get unlimited overtime. So at that 3-year mark, which was 2013, I left my job in 2016. I was like, okay, every blizzard, that's what we called it. I was like, it has to have a goal. So my
Mhm.
first blizzard was like, okay, I need to get my credit cards down. So all my overtime hours went to getting whatever credit card. And I didn't have a lot of credit cards, but getting that down, it also was paying off my car.
Mhm.
Done. Then the next blizzard was like, okay, let me pay off my smallest student loan. Done.
Mhm.
It was literally me operating in obedience because now I had clarity that I no longer want to be here. But in order for me not to be here, I need to make sure I get these things off the list. And then when it happened, I thought I was gonna finish out 2016 year at my job, but I was gone in July.
The Lord said move.
The Lord said move. I was going in July, but my last blizzard, which was that year, was literally everything I make in overtime. I'm putting it in extra into my savings. Like it had a purpose. I'm going
Mhm.
to invest. I need to make this money grow. And at that time, it was like, okay, Jania, make sure you have a year's worth of saving. At that time, a year worth of saving was maybe like $10,000. Because in my mind, it was like, what. I can always just get another job and come back if this don't work out. I never thought like, what if it does work? And that's
Mhm.
the other thing. Build your mindset.
Yes, yes.
Build your mindset because here I am 9, 10 years later, and I'm like, oh, well, it did work. Now I'm
Mhm.
living in a beautiful home. Now, I end up buying another car. That's paid off. Then
Look at God.
the good Biden and the Biden administration. They cleared the rest of my student loans last year. So I'm literally 10 times better than what I was back then. But I also just had the obedience and the honesty and authentic conversation with myself and God to what I needed to do to get there.
Amen. Yes, you did it, Joe. Yes, he cleared them student debts. And I think obedience, when I talk to folks on the Dear Black ED podcast, that's
Mhm.
the recurring word or the recurring theme is that you have to be able to walk in obedience and preparation, right? And so you prepared for a time. And as
You
I
have
just
consistent habits. I'll add consistent habits.
consistency.
Yeah.
Hmm.
People don't. They'll start with, because it's just like when you're working out. Like, have consistent habits. I try to go for a mile walk every day.
Hmm.
I may miss a day, but I try to go and have some active because I'm trying to be consistent. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that and moving your body is important.
Mhm,
Moving your body most certainly. So we talked about the preparation, right? You
mhm,
got here, the obedience. And so you're here, right? And so you're leading programs that help emerging leaders, establish organizations, strengthen their infrastructure. And so
mhm,
when you think about capacity,
mhm.
how do you define it? What do you think many nonprofits misunderstand about capacity?
Yeah. I think with capacity, because most people, I do believe this. I do believe that most people in nonprofit do have a heart and want to do something greater.
Mhm.
Do some, yes, do we, I just saw an article about somebody doing something fraudulent with nonprofit funds. Yes, you do see it's easy to fraud a nonprofit. It's easy
Yeah.
to do those things. But I will say capacity, a lot of times I realize that we see this vision, and you see the vision, and the vision is usually very grand, right?
Mhm.
But you seeing the vision that's very bland does not mean that that is how it starts. So I
Mhm.
think capacity is more so being honest with yourself of, I know what this big vision is, but what is it that is going to take me every day, every month, every quarter to consistently and slowly get to that vision. And that
Mhm.
goes back to your capacity. When you're starting off as a founder, you're grassroots. And even if you had the most money in the world, it's still you and trying to find and hire the person that aligns with what you're doing. And
Mhm.
sometimes you can hire the wrong person and it will feel like it's gotten you off track to where you're going. But
Mhm.
I do think that capacity has a lot to do with you being honest with yourself about what you can accomplish and what those minor goals are within the realm of the season that you're in at that time. So some people be trying to do stuff too fast, and I'm like, it wasn't meant to be fast because you got to learn, you know.
Mhm.
And so even with a lot of my clients, and even with the Leadership Accelerator program, we have to get very clear on our goals, even when those goals seem to shift, even
Mhm.
when funding seems to change. That doesn't mean your goal change. Right now, it's tight with nonprofits. This money is
Yeah.
very tight with Stiletto Boss University. Cash flow is
Mhm.
very low, and that's just me being honest. But the
Mhm.
goal is always the impact. But
Yeah.
within my capacity, we had to cut back on some things.
Mhm.
We can't serve 8 schools like we normally do. Now we serving 4. We serving
Mhm.
them well though. We
Mhm.
serving them well, but our capacity has changed, but our goal has not. So I think it's two parts in that. I think capacity is knowing what you can do or what you have, but
Mhm.
also still remaining true to the goal of where you're trying to go.
Absolutely. And I think what you said, and I want you to speak on this a little bit more
Mhm,
around, right? We are in a time where, there is an attack on nonprofit organizations, particularly like Black led grassroots organizations,
mhm,
those that are doing the DEI work where there are federal funding cuts. Funders are pulling back. And so what you said was we are still working, right? We
mhm,
may have went from 8, now we're at 4, but we're
mhm,
doing amazing at 4, right? And so could you share a little bit of wisdom or a little insight for particularly founders? And I want to hone in on founders
mhm,
because oftentimes these are our babies, right? We
mhm,
have birthed this literally from the ground up, and
mhm,
how we envision something. And you talked a lot about it with like the capacity. It's
mhm,
hard to pivot or hard to shift
mhm,
because you want to hold on to whatever you believe this vision to be, or however you see the
mhm,
organization. So could you speak to what that pivot has looked like for you and kind of
mhm,
where your mindset is in terms of having to scale back
mhm.
for this season, and any plans as things begin to shift and move forward? Kind of what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say being in it, because y'all get my real raw answer right now. Being in it, I had to put any ego or pride aside.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And the truth is, I am not the only one scaling back. I've seen nonprofits close abruptly because they did
Mhm.
not get any federal funding that they had earmarked and promised to them. And they've had
Mhm.
to completely shut down. So I
Wow.
have so much gratitude that we have not had to completely shut down, but it could happen at any moment, you know? So I think there had to be a level of honesty with my team,
Mhm.
level of honesty with our partners, and a level of honesty with our donors. Like we can't do this alone, and we never have. So we
Mhm.
need community more than ever now, you know. And sometimes in that is kindness, and sometimes in that is being aware. Like you just read in my bio, we've served over 1,000 girls.
Mhm.
So good job, oh faithful servant. Like
Mhm.
even
Yeah,
if it,
yeah.
even if it comes, I don't know what God is doing. I really don't. I'm taking it day by day. I think this in being in this season, I've had to take it day by day and month by month, you know, and
Mhm.
also not overdoing. That's why that capacity question is so great right now, because it's like, okay, this is what we have in the bank.
Mhm.
This is what we have to do if we're going to serve this. You know, this is what we have to save. And I've had to sacrifice. I am currently, as an ED, not being paid for the
Mm.
organization that I founded.
Mm.
That's true. That's a statement. That's real,
That's
but it
very
also has not stopped us from continuing. I have not stopped picking up calls. I have not stopped answering emails. The person that is getting paid right now is our program director, and even she, because she's so amazing and believe in the work so bad and understand what is going on, she's even had the grace to be like, you can cut my thing in half,
mm.
cut that in half. And I'm like, and I don't even want to do that. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
and it's still keeping a track of everything. So I feel like you have to remove ego and pride aside. You have to really put that those I have to put on my big girl panties. Like, okay,
Mhm.
this is what it's looking like. You know, I have constant calls with my accountant. This is where we're going. These are opportunities. And it also has leverage, just like reminders of who we
Mhm.
are, what we do in this community, and the impact that we have. So if it ends, it's still great. And if it keeps going, it's still great. There is nothing that I feel at this point that there was not a good job being done. And I
Mm.
think of that has to go back into your pride and your ego and really honoring what you've done in the time you've done it.
No, and I thank you for your transparency. I think that's very real and very raw, like you said, and very honest. I think oftentimes we don't have these conversations. You're right, because of pride and ego and
Or
how will others
shame.
perceive us,
Yeah,
right?
shame. Or like, oh my God, they gonna think I don't know how to manage this money. No, ma'am, I can show you. The 990s are in the system. You can
They're
see
online.
exactly
Everybody can see
online.
them.
There's public information. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's tough. It's definitely tough, but it has been the most being honest about it with the people I have to be honest with about it has brought so much pride for me, because the team is like, we got you.
Mhm.
We gonna keep serving these people. They are so passionate about what they do, and that should not be the sacrifice for any nonprofit.
Right.
It shouldn't be, but this is where we're at, and we're all trying to navigate something that changes every week. It feels like it feel like the first quarter I was like, I think I just couldn't work. I was just like,
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't even want to strategize because it's going to change, you know? So it
Mhm.
was literally having to sit in stillness and watch, but also not be of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like it
Mhm.
was literally like, okay, I see what's going on, but I need to be still because God got it. He birthed
Yeah.
it, so he got it.
Amen.
I'm okay with whatever the results will be. But I had to come to that conclusion within myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I did what I supposed to do. I done something that most people wouldn't dare,
Yeah.
like wouldn't even consider. Still sitting on a great idea and wouldn't even try because
Yes.
whatever fear, anxiety, or whatever. I've overcome that. And so
Excellent.
what else is coming is going to be greater. So it will be an announcement, you know, We got some things cooking, but
Right.
it's just I can't say nothing right now because God's still working on it.
Amen. Look, and we respect that space, and honor that. And so you shared your story, right, in a very real way. And as the program director of our Black Leadership Accelerator, and we're about to launch cohort 3,
Hey.
could you share just kind of in your experience and, doing an amazing job for the last few years, working directly with our Black leaders? Are there any other patterns or gaps that you may have consistently seen or observed amongst some of our executive directors, and ways for continued support around that?
Yeah, I think what I have seen consistently working with the last going two cohorts, and now even just that we're in early interviews for cohort 3, I
Mm-hmm.
think it has just been a lack of confidence.
Mm.
So I know last year we changed, and I talked to you about it, and I'm grateful that you continue to trust the what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But it has literally been the shift to how do we lead from an equity lens,
Mm-hmm.
simply because we are the face of inequity.
Mm.
So
Mm.
how do we lead from an equity lens, being people that know how it feels to be unjust? Like
Yeah.
we have from our ancestors. Like even I remember coming up there to DC and going to the African American Culture Museum, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, "There is no way I can walk out of here with my head down.
Mm.
That would be a disgrace to what I
Mm-hmm.
just walked in here and witnessed." Even what I thought I knew, I ain't know nothing compared to walking through that museum and
Wow.
understanding how beautiful blackness is and
Mm.
how resilient we are, And at times we can still be our own worst enemies, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying? But I do still see the lack of confidence, the lack of we are, and I think that the truest statement I can ever say is that we none of us know what we're doing.
Mhm.
We just out here. If you a mama, you don't know what you're doing. When you
Mhm.
just learn that you are literally you got something in you, like I know I need to do this, but you still learning every day. You're still growing every day. Yeah, as a business owner, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm solving half the problems that I'm solving. I do not. Not. I'm just out here winging it, y'all.
Holy Spirit.
It's just,
Mhm.
yeah, we really out here winging it. And the more we accept that we out here winging it, we'll get far because we
Yeah.
now we're operating in truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now you're being open to answers, perspectives. You know what I'm saying? So I do think there's just been a lack of confidence because we think we're supposed to show up a certain way when we
Mhm.
just supposed to show up as being who we are and having the idea and learning from other people's experiences. So I get really excited around that piece. We added the retreat last year and just kind of just having the open discussion. And there was
Yeah.
even a part in the discussion, even when our board member Nico spoke up about imposter syndrome and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
where did we get that from? You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like, why do you feel like an imposter? And is that even possible? Because I don't even believe in it. You know what I'm saying? But is imposter syndrome really just an insecurity? You know what I'm saying? Because you
Mhm.
know who you are,
Yeah.
you know your name, you know where you came from, you know what you are, you know what I'm saying? But it is something that's a veil for a lot of people. So I
Yeah.
just think that the lack of confidence is something that is hindering us all in a way. And until we get to the root of that and owning it and not cringing when you hear the bio, when we heal that piece of us, then we're able to show up in our most authentic way and be experts in what it is that we have been tasked to do in the community.
Absolutely. 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 So when we talk about community, and specifically community impact, you often talk about kind of bridging some of the corporate strategy
Mhm.
with community impact. And so, what are some practical ways for nonprofit leaders that they can adapt more of a strategic entrepreneurial mindset without losing focus of their mission? Because we are in a time, as you mentioned, where funding is being cut and we have to diversify, right?
Right.
Revenue streams. And
Revenue streams.
so, what are some ways where folks, some tangible things that people can walk away with today and say, what are some strategies in terms of kind of bridging, the corporate
Mm-hmm.
side? Because you mentioned nonprofits are like corporate, like they're with businesses, right? With
Yeah.
the community impact.
Mm-hmm. I think that if I were, well, coming in as a grassroots leader, I immediately thought business minded first. So I was
Mhm.
immediately like, how do we create earned revenue? You
Awesome.
know, so
Awesome.
earned revenue could be anything from you creating a dope brand. And
Mhm.
examples of that is that, I often will say, a lot of people, don't realize that Rolex is like a nonprofit. But Rolex has a luxury dope brand. So
Yeah.
you're not even thinking about giving, but that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you dive deeper into that story of that, you're like, oh my God, but it's like
Yeah.
a brand. So, your earned revenue could be making just a dope brand, a dope
Mhm.
messaging, something that could be apparel, something that could be a signature item. It could be
Mhm.
something that is a journal to help free people. But I think
Mm.
you have to think on a realm of like, what problem am I solving? Right.
Right.
So if we use world hunger as an example. I mean, we know there's enough food to go around this world.
Mhm.
It's just not being circulated correctly.
Mhm.
It's not being disseminated into the communities correctly. So if you're
Right.
starting a nonprofit, what is it that you can solve with food insecurity?
Mhm.
And then that problem that you're solving is not about continuing to harbor more food, it's to continue to circulate the food out there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so that is a it solves the problem. So I think
Mhm.
a lot of times we will start nonprofits and we'll see the problem, but we're not showing how we'll solve it.
Mhm.
And so with Huepact is like, okay, well, let us help you create curriculum. Because if
Mhm.
you want to teach financial literacy, how are we measuring that they are learning it and that they are applying that to help them get something?
Yeah.
Are they getting better with profit and loss statements? Did they
Mhm.
start a business? Did they get their own house? Has the house, how long they've been in the house? Because it's a difference. They went through this program. 2 years later, they were able to buy a house. 5 years later, they're still in the house. 10 years later, they now bought another house. They now have generational. Like, we have to be intentional about what the journey is when we create our impact and what that's supposed to
Absolutely.
be. And if you can't think in a way, if you're just like, oh, I'm just going to start a nonprofit because these kids need help. How?
Mhm.
What do they need help with?
Right. Right.
Or do they need help with, and even some things with youth I know can be difficult because I realize that a lot of this generation, they all they know is tech,
Mm.
and not just this generation, it's the generation after, every generation here on out is all they gonna know is. Can you imagine
Listen,
the next couple of generations? Look, Cinco only gonna know AI. Like
baby, Cinco answer the cell phone now. He can slide it like this. Hello. That's what he does. I say, you know what, Cinco, put the phone
that's
down. Why you
all
know
they
the
know.
phone, Cinco?
But we come from the generation where there was not a cell phone. Like I
Yeah.
remember when a cell phone was like literally, or the page. I remember, like, we are the last generation that remembers these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But life was out before this. But what I'm saying is, even though I brought up AI, I do think that with AI, that nonprofits are going to have to learn how to really leverage it in a way
Yes.
to be impactful. You know what I'm saying? Not in a way to do harm,
Mhm.
because it's literally, we still need people, but robots are replacing us in the same sense. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I just think that people just have to be very clear with, I have an idea. How does that solve the problem? And what shows that what are the metrics?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I went to a
Use
TED
Black
Talk.
ED as an example. Black ED is a great example. It's building community,
Yeah.
and in that community is connecting them to funders, is connecting them to resources, connecting them to opportunities. And
Mm.
those opportunities then lead to them either sustaining their organization, solving more problems, getting more funding. Like, it's, what is the problem that we're solving here?
Absolutely, absolutely. No. So let's sit in this youth space for a while, right? Because we talk about like youth, and that's really kind of where your journey started with you seeing what you needed, right? Or seeing things that could have supported you, your younger self. And so you talked about you've supported over 1,000 girls, now young women, to
Mhm.
launch ventures, and lead with what we heard you speak about was the confidence, right?
Yeah,
And so, can you share one story that maybe captures the kind of impact
yeah.
that Stiletto Boss University has had on a participant or the community at large?
Yes. I have so many stories. One that comes to mind, Jessica, she was with our Mooresville chapter. I think Jessica's a sophomore or a junior in college now. But she had a passion. She is Latino. She has a passion to support the Latino community, and she decided that her business was going to be a nonprofit to provide resources.
Mhm.
And I know those resources back then when she started it was from one perspective, but now seeing her dealing with things going on with ICE and things in the community and still going to school, like her starting her nonprofit was so impactful to me, in a way, to the point where I started learning Spanish.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Like I'm on
¿Cómo
Duolingo.
estás?
Yes,
Mhm.
como estamos bien, lo
Yeah.
siento, hasta luego.
Yeah.
Like I'm all in it, baby. I think I'm Selena, all of them. Okay.
I love that.
I cannot wait for Bad Bunny at this Super Bowl.
Oh, yes,
I got
yes,
everybody doing salsa classes, 8 counts. Let's
yes.
go. Like, taco, it's gonna be a good time. Okay. So
Yes.
but her nonprofit, for her to start it before all these things happened and to see her still navigating it through college and seeing the impact of what she's had by starting this nonprofit to provide resources and support to her community where she saw was missing has been so empowering for me to see her to do it, because we had to talk a lot more, because I'm coaching you as like your nonprofit coach. Just recently last week, one of our other participants, I just wrote her recommendation for law school. So
Oh,
then we have another participant. Then our very first cohort, she is in law school now in Charleston.
wow.
So seeing them like grow and their trajectory. I remember them talking about one thing, like, oh, I'm gonna go be a chemist. And it's like, nah, you were able to recognize your other gifts and your other passion. And so the other student that is in law school now, she ended up doing Teach for America. And she told me, she said, after going through Stiletto Bosch University and just seeing the inequities in education, I wanted to go and Teach for America and learn more about it. But also now I want to go into law school to make policies that make things better. And I was
Love
like, that literally changed the trajectory of what she may have thought, or maybe what her parents could have been, instilling in her to do, because our parents want the best for us, but they want us to have some money. So, so, so
absolutely.
those are like two, but it's crazy when I see them. They take me out to lunch and stuff. And I'm like, y'all are not adults. Like, what are you talking about? But they'll take me out and give me updates. I still write letters of recommendations for them. They still like, even them knowing what's going on with SBU now, they're putting together a OG
I
alumni.
love that.
We're gonna do like where are they now type of thing. So they're like they even came back in to be like, how do we help this organization that has helped us to tell the story of where we're at now? And I'm like, thank you, my baby. So yeah, it's so many good stories, and I have to constantly remind myself of them too.
Awesome. I love that. Well, shout out to what Jessica's doing, and the young ladies that are making an impact and policy change in law school, because now more than ever, we need women spearheading and taking the charge
Mm-hmm.
to right some of these wrongful policies that are most certainly impacting millions of people on a global scale. And so, kudos to kind of the support that you've provided to those young ladies through the program. And so when we talk about, you mentioned a lot about like even Jessica's story,
Mm-hmm.
and how she's creating resources for her community. But can you talk about, even through your work with Huepact, how you help organizations design measurable impact, right? Because we can talk about
Mhm.
impact strategies, but
Mhm.
what are some key indicators in terms or metrics of how what you look at when assessing whether a program is truly building capacity and creating lasting change?
Yeah. So one of my clients down here in Charlotte, they have a farmers market, and it's called Seed for Change. And we added a curriculum to it that teaches them the business. So how do you run a farmers market? Y'all are
Mhm,
creating this produce for the community, but how do we make sure that there's a business concept behind it? And
mhm,
so what has been so cool about this particular project is that this nonprofit organization is about to open their first co-op grocery store called Three Sisters Market. So like teaching these kids the business of agriculture and
mhm,
how they're able to grow and learn how to feed themselves. So it's
mm,
one thing to teach them the business, but they're also learning how to feed themselves. They can take how to grow tomatoes and collard greens and all of
mm,
these things through them for the rest of their lives. They can go to North Carolina A&T and learn about the food chain. And the food chain is so broad. It don't have to be all just agriculture. Goes into snack companies, Snide Lance. It goes into all these things, but they'll never miss the core of learning how to feed themselves or their family through their own hands. But I will say one thing that we do measure is we measure the participants. We do pre and post surveys with them.
mhm,
Measure how they're doing in school. We're measuring their social emotional learning. How do they
mhm,
feel about themselves before going through the program, and how do they feel about themselves afterwards? Because
mhm.
when you start to give people what can be purpose for them, or to have them be a part of something that is for greater good, their confidence goes through the roof.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
feel like they have a reason to be here. They're not affected by bullying anymore. They're not affected by people talking about them, in a way, because they know who they are now. Um, but sustainability for that has been, this program has been running since I came on in 2017, 2018. We just
Mhm,
finished up a cohort this summer, and they come back. They come back every year, which is a great indicator. But we also have it to the point where it's so sustainable. They just have their own operating funds to have like a program manager. We actually pay the kids, so the
mhm,
kids have a summer job. So then we measure them on how often do they come to work, their attendance. They have different expectations. So we measure them on so many things. But I think most importantly for that community and why that program is important, that side of the town here in Charlotte is considered a food desert.
mhm.
So to see and for people to drive by because it's on the main street and to see kids out there doing farming empowers the community way more ways than you could even think. And then it also gives people the responsibility to support, to get the fresh food. You may not have a grocery store, but you can come over here and get you some sweet potatoes.
Yes, yeah. No, I love that. We have a little garden in my community, and I was thinking about kind of getting a little, I guess, a little plot or something and taking,
Garden bed. Mm.
yeah, a little Cinco over there and, making that something for he and I. Now, I don't know nothing about no garden, so I'm gonna be on YouTube and all the things.
But it
I might have
teaches
to
you
tap into some of them
patience.
girls,
No,
huh?
it teaches you patience. Like I have this plant. It's a crazy story. I have this plant. It's an orchid. And my friend Stacy, shout out to my friend Stacy, she gave it to me for my birthday 2 years ago. And I don't know why I knew it was real, but maybe I thought it was fake. I don't know, but I put it in a dark spot in my house. And so it literally, I thought it died. And then I moved it to my windowsill in my kitchen. And
Mhm.
I just kept watering it and it was nothing happened. I just kept watering. And baby, one day I came downstairs and that thing bloomed. It was like a plant. And I was just like, this is the patience that it teaches you. Like you can have a dormant season.
Mhm.
Just if you keep watering it, keep watering, you don't know what's happening. And plants have taught me so much of that, even with just one of my peace lilies is when my grandma passed away in
Yeah.
2020, and I still have it. And it's temperamental, but it's just like it has taught me so much about just, like growing. Like I just
Mhm.
like it's so amazing how these plants just grow. And I don't know nothing about a plant. The fact that I have three that are still downstairs thriving speaks volumes. Because
Amen.
nothing.
Amen.
It is such a lesson I feel like that you learn. And I feel like the kids are getting that too. For them to put something in the ground in the soil and then for them to see it grow. And then their signature item, I forgot to say that. Their signature item is honey.
Mm.
They've learned how to be beekeepers and how honey's produced. And honey is a good seller at any farmer's market.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Listen, I
Yeah, so
love honey.
they love they learn so much about entrepreneurship themselves, growing. It's just like, how can this program not be? And it's been around for, like I said, since I came on in 2017, 2018, and so it's we almost 10 years. So
Amen. Well, look, I think you got a little sermonette over there because when we talk about, I think that plan is just like leadership, right? So
yeah,
when we keep watering something and sometimes you don't see it growing, nothing's happening, and then eventually, you go through dormant seasons, right? And this may be a dormant season for a lot of us, but
mm-hmm.
eventually it grows and you just wake up one day or you go down one day
It'll
and
be
then you see the fruits of all of the water and the labor and the tool that you put into whatever it is you're trying to grow. And so, yeah, you just preached a little sermon over there. You didn't even know it.
True
Look,
story
you over
though.
there
It's a
doing
true
that
story.
Bible. Come on, Bible
Yeah,
study.
Bible.com. Holla at me. Let me be y'all ambassador. Holla at me.
Amen. Well, as we are winding down on time today, and I was like, I know this gonna be, I could talk to Jania forever because I know we be going on our, programming calls and then we be sidebarring challenge, we be talking, but I wanted to kind of, wrap us up a little bit today and say, I know you talked very transparently about, some of the newer developments with SBU,
Mhm.
but what's next for you, Jania, whether it's personally or through your organizations,
What?
scaling or deepening your work? Can you share a little bit with our listeners about what's next? And then we'll talk about for those that want to get in contact with you, how can they do that as well?
That's such a great question. I am currently wrapping up the Goldman Sachs program, and it has been such a game changer for me in regards to scaling Huepact, where we're going, and what that's looking like. So we are working on a really big project right now around a merchant association that has really been a combination of having my heart for businesses and community.
Hmm.
It's like the perfect marriage, and it is a very dear project that we're working on that will wrap up next year in late 2016. And so, just like exploring that, we are scaling. So we do have we've added some new people on our team, which
Hmm.
has been exciting. We have, of course, the Leadership Accelerator, so we'll be executing that, and then we have some other stuff happening. I'm just like, God is good. I've just had to make some shifts, but I see what he's doing and I appreciate him for what he did.
Amen.
Oh yeah. So it'll be more. So definitely encouraging everybody to make sure y'all follow us on LinkedIn under Huepact or my name, Jania Massey. I definitely will be sharing that. Follow my Substack. I will be sharing more about the journey and my personal experience of growing and scaling a company and becoming more national.
Awesome. No, I love to hear that. And so I will definitely drop all of the things around how folks can get in contact with you.
Mm.
Um, and one last thing, because today was all about capacity,
Mhm.
is one final question for nonprofit leaders who want to crack this capacity code
Ooh, child.
in their own organization. What's just one piece of advice before we sign off today that you'd like to give them?
I would say define capacity at your level. Do not mold it for something else. Define it at your own level. Define it at your own values. Define it at your own interests and define it for the community that you serve. and lead with that. You know what I'm saying? Don't let anybody else define what you do in capacity. And don't everybody judge you on how you do capacity. Own
Yeah,
it.
own it.
Own it.
Own it. So that's what I'm hearing, ladies and gentlemen. Own it. So I just want to say thank you, Jania Massey, for a very insightful, a great conversation. I knew it would be. I was so excited for today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties getting here, y'all, but you know, everything always happens when it's supposed to happen. And so I thank you for your grace and your flexibility in getting here today. Um,
For you, JD.
Thank you. So today, episode 19, the capacity code, accelerating leaders and communities with Jania Massey. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. Come back again next month, November, for episode 20 with Derek Fletcher. It's going to be an amazing conversation. So until then, take care of yourselves and thanks for tuning in.
Bye.